Alright guys, let's move on to Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game. Now I've never played this game before, so I don't know the rules. So what we're going to do today is, for this video, we're going to look at the box, look at the back of the box, I'll read it to you and show you an image of it, and then we're going to unbox it. We're going to look at each piece individually, I'll have a picture of each, we're going to look at the miniatures included, we're going to look at the cards included, and then we're going to have a look at the rule book. And I'm going to do my best to explain how to play this game. I don't know anything about it. I've played miniatures games in the past, including many Star Wars ones, but I don't know anything about this, so don't expect me to have any hidden knowledge or any background information that is not in this video. Okay guys, so what we got here is the box. Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game, that's the full title. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It is a time of uncertainty. Unrest grips the galaxy as the influence of the First Order spreads, but a glimmer of hope remains in the heroic forces of the Resistance. As they struggle against the dark might of the enemy, these brave heroes may yet awaken the skill and strength needed to forge a new future. And then it says, moves on to the game. X-Wing is a fast-paced game of tactical space combat in the Star Wars universe, so it's a tactics game. The players control starfighters from either the Resistance or the First Order, outfit them with a variety of pilots, special weapons, and upgrades, and attempt to outmaneuver their opponents. This box contains everything two players need to get started playing X-Wing, including painted plastic ships, custom dice, cards, tokens, a learn-to-play guide, which is what we're going to be looking at. I'm happy that's in there. Advanced rules, which means there's going to be more rules outside of the quick start thing. And special missions are also included to let players take their game to the next level. Man your ships and may the Force be with you. There's an image on the back showing cards, an example of some of the cards, and many of the pieces in the game. This also uses dice. I didn't know that. It's important to note on the back that it does say this is a two-player game, once again. It is for ages 14 and up, and then it says it's about 30 to 45 minutes. And I don't know if there's a real easy way to do this, because it is shrink wrapped. So let's just find a part and start ripping off the shrink wrap. There we go. Should be pretty easy now. Let's take that off and take this off here. Put that on the floor for later. And I can already tell this box is actually pretty good quality, as with most of the Fantasy Flight games that I've played before, such as Lord of the Rings and some of the Warhammer games. The box is really nice texture to it. It's not just your normal glossy cardboard, but it has a nice texture to it that Fantasy Flight games usually have, so that's always good to know. On the front cover, a miniatures game of tactical space combat for two players, and indicated from the new film, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now I do want to point that out because there is other versions of this game, or should I say expansions, because this isn't just a single game experience. You can add on to it. There's different packs and expansions you can buy for this game if you want to play further. There's also an earlier pack of this game, which is from the original trilogy, I believe. I don't know if it's Yavin or Endor, but it's one of those, I believe. But there's other packs for this game as well. So let's get on with opening it up. Da-da-da-da! Nothing under the lid, so we'll set the lid aside. Though I do want to point out, this is actually a hole. Didn't know that. Okay, so this is what it looks like inside. Pretty cool. So let's take everything out. Okay, we've got this, which I believe is some sort of Punch-Out cards, which are also shrink-wrapped. Now these are, I look like I have to actually punch them out of the cardboard, and it actually feels pretty sturdy. There's 4 pieces of cardboard in here, or card stock, or something like that. It feels more heavier than normal cardboard. It's sort of like, I don't know if you've played Dungeons & Dragons when they had those tokens you pop out. It's sort of like those. That's what I'm assuming. Then we've got a 2015 Fantasy Flight Games catalog. I'm assuming this came out when Force Awakens came out, so that's why it's summer 2015. I guess. Maybe that was the most recent one at the time, but here's the catalog. I'll set that over here because that's not actually part of the game itself. Now, we've got this paper, which details, I guess it's an advertisement, and that is really cool. Okay, let's get on to the game itself. If I can get this paper out of here, that would be great. There we go. That did the trick. We've got the miniatures game mission guide, which is a special way of playing the game, just reading the introduction briefly. So we're going to save this booklet for another time. I'm going to set that over here on this pile of advertisements as well, but I'm not going to throw any of this away. So we've got the Learn to Play booklet. Looks pretty handy and pretty easy to understand. It's not that big of a booklet. It's very small. It says 16 pages on the back. Pretty brief. Keep that over here. Then you got the rules reference booklet, which has 24 pages looking at the back. And it's got, you know, I'm assuming this is like more specific things. Like if you have a question in the game, you can look it up in here. I think this is more like a glossary. And I'll set that over here for now, because we're not actually going to get to the game today. But I'll check out the Learn to Play booklet. I was hoping they'd have a quick start sheet, but I don't see that. I guess it's just this Learn to Play booklet, so we'll look at that briefly. But for now, we're going to check out the pieces of the game. Alright guys, so we're going to take out this plastic, this clear plastic container, but I'm actually going to keep this kind of plastic. You know, sometimes in board games you see plastic parts and you just want to throw them away. But sometimes, like in this case, it looks like they're actually trays, so I'm keeping them in this box for storage purposes. I'd rather have them in a storage part in the box rather than have them floating loosely in the box. You know, with these more hardcore tabletop experiences or games for an adult audience, you know, it said 14 or not. I think they know what players want more than a family-friendly board game, so there's a little bit more attention to detail with these. So we've got this little set here, which is what the miniatures are actually in. So we've got this little pack right here, which is clear plastic poles, or miniature poles. And I'm assuming that's what you use to put your miniatures actually in the stand right here, this clear stands. And these are actually in Ziploc style bags, zip bags. I believe you put the poles in the stands and you put the poles into the miniatures. And these are actually pretty detailed. I'll have some close-ups of these, of course, because they're miniatures and they're pretty small. But I have a Black Series miniature TIE Fighter, and that, compared to this, they're pretty close. These are actually pretty detailed. I know they're ships, they're not people or animals or monsters or anything, but these are pretty detailed. I'm surprised at the detail on this. And then you get one Resistance Fighter, which is a little weird. You're doing one on your side versus two on your opponent's side, or vice versa. But you get an X-Wing. This is the Resistance X-Wing. So we've got this, and it is very detailed. I know it's a miniature. I know it's just a ship, which may or may not be easier to make than a person or a monster. But this is very detailed. I mean, if this was a little bit bigger, it could go for a Black Series. Now, we're going to put that down there on the table. This is empty now. I'm going to set this on the floor. I don't think I'll be reusing that. Now, we've got a couple other things to look at. We've got the dice, also in a Ziploc zippy bag, and some strange objects. I don't know what to call them. They kind of look like my gauged earrings, but I don't know what they are. So we'll find that out in a bit. We've got another bag. What's really nice is these are in Ziploc bags, so I can just put them in there, and I don't have to worry about them falling out after the gameplay. We've got cards. Now, the cards are a lot smaller than I expected. I know it's a miniatures game, but these cards are about half the size of a normal playing card. Maybe a little bit more than half. And then we've got these cards, which are closer to a playing card, I think. And these are probably, well, it says Poe Dameron's X-Wing, which is what this is. So you got Poe Dameron from the film, and you've got some cards. There's more than one card in there. And then this other one, there's a lot in there too. Now, There is one other thing in the bottom, so we got to take out this big plastic here, and it should just slide right out somehow. Well, this is a plastic tray. We've got whatever this is. It's a 3-2-1 red, 3-2-1 green. Doesn't come apart, it doesn't break apart, so I'm just gonna keep it aside. Alright guys, so we've taken everything out of the box. Now what I'm gonna do is give you a close-up look at each of the pieces, and I'm gonna open up this as well, and the card packs, and the dice. We're gonna look at everything, we're gonna put the miniatures on their stands, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the rules briefly, and then we'll wrap things up. Alright, let's jump in with the pieces. Alright, so you can see we've got all three of them set up on their display stands. They're not just a display stand, but they make it easier to move and hold on to during the gameplay, so you're not always touching the ship. You can also touch the base as well. And it looks cool because it looks like they're flying like a ship should be. Looking at the cards in this game, we've got two different sizes. We've got the small size, which is about half the size of a playing card once again. And then we've got the full-size playing card style card. And these are all different types of cards. So what we have here are these two are ship cards, one for each faction or side. So we've got the First Order here and the Resistance here. Obviously, since there's only one Resistance ship, and these are the ship cards, you get less cards. And then for the First Order, there's more ships, you get more cards. Now, it's kind of interesting to note because you would think you would get exactly half for the Resistance. With the First Order, you get one more than double of the Resistance. So this one you get 4, and this one you get 9. I'm not sure why that is. Now, to look at these cards, we've got different pictures and information on each card. We've got Poe Dameron, Blue Squadron Novice, Red Squadron Veteran, and the Blue Ace. Looking at the First Order cards, we've got Omega Ace, Omega Squadron Pilot again, Zeta Ace, Epsilon Leader, Zeta Squadron Pilot, Epsilon Squadron Pilot, and another Epsilon Squadron Pilot. So we've got all those cards. Let's put these back. For these cards, these are actually damaged cards, and there's a lot of these. There's 33 of these cards. For example, this one says Stun Pilot. Pilot, after you execute a maneuver, if you are touching another ship or overlapping an obstacle token, suffer 1 damage. So they indicate how much damage you'll take, and it's sort of like an action, but they're called damage cards. They're indicated by this symbol on the back. So it's sort of like how these Resistance and First Order were symbolized on the back. The back of the cards are important too because you can tell them apart. And they have these other cards here. These other cards here are called upgrade cards. Now you can notice that these actually have different pictures on the back. Some of them have droids. Some of them have whatever that icon is. Then you have whatever these icons are, other droids or pickups from Star Wars. Now, even though these cards are quite small, they do have a lot of text on them as well, but they also have a really nice image on each and every card, so they get a high quality image on each card, and of course it's full color, it's nice quality, and it looks great. Now we're going to look at every role-playing gamer's favorite item, the dice. And these are some unique dice here. They're not numbered, they're iconed with symbols on them. So let's take a look at that. Alright guys, this is the dice. So we've got these strange objects. I don't know what they are. I don't know what their purpose is yet. They may have something to do with the ships because there's 3 of those and 3 of the ships. But then let's look at the dice. So we've got green dice, red dice. I'm assuming these are each for each team, and perhaps, and possibly, they might be for each ship individually. So maybe this goes to one ship, maybe this goes to another. I don't know yet, but we'll find that out soon. I don't know what the symbols mean, but I do notice that some sides, such as this side, is blank. And there's another side that's blank too, so there's like 3 blank sides on there. Interesting. Now I have these 4 cardboard punch-out sheets. They're actually pretty high quality for the cardboard or cardstock, and what they are they're all perforated or whatever, cut out, so you just kind of punch them out, And these are all pieces for the game. And then you've got things like this, which look like the tracking computers on the TIE fighters or the X-Wings. Really interesting. And then you've got another one of these, which I'm not sure, these are mostly for pieces for the game. That are specific to the game. So let me read the introduction, because there is an introduction section, there's a game overview, and then it shows you a little bit about the pieces. So let's just do that, and then I'll indicate which piece is which. Introduction. The squadron is assembled and weapons are primed and ready. Over the comlink chatter of your squad mates, your radar lights up. Enemy targets on the approach. You are the last line of defense between the hated enemy and the charges that you are sworn to protect. Face the enemy head-on and lead your squadron to victory. The game overview. In X-Wing, 2 players engage in an exciting, fast-paced dogfight in the Star Wars universe. Each player takes control of the galaxy's finest starfighters, either the Resistance X-Wing or the First Order TIE Fighter, and pits them against each other in a brutal battle for control in space. Over several game rounds, these ships deftly maneuver and barrage each other with lasers and ordnance until all of one player's ships are destroyed. This learn-to-play booklet starts with a tutorial that teaches players the basic rules of the game, including moving ships, performing attacks, and winning the game. Basic stuff, which is really important to keep it simple on a board game that looks as complex as this. It is important for players to understand these fundamental concepts before moving on to more advanced concepts. I like this manual so far. After players have played the tutorial and learned the basics of X-Wing, they're prepared to learn how to build squads of their own for a standard game or play one of the special missions included in this box. The rules reference addresses questions and special exceptions that are not answered in this booklet. Players should refer to the rules reference if any questions arise during gameplay. So if you have any questions when you're playing, be sure to hang on to the rules reference. Probably keep it on the table, and you can check out this little handy guide. It's sort of like a glossary, sort of like a rules compendium of sorts. Really cool stuff. And the first thing that it lists on here, which I already did, was ship assembly. It's a 4-step process. You have the ship, you have the peg pole, you have the base. But I did something wrong. Yes, I did. For now, this is fine. For later, what you're going to have to do is there's something on here that you punch out. I believe it's one of these. That's what it looks like. Or one of these, you put that into the stand. So it kind of goes in the stand at the base. Which is pretty cool. I think that's cool. I like that kind of stuff. Then the rules tell you what these are about, these little earring peg looking things. Now these are actually for the maneuver dial. So it shows you how to assemble the maneuver dial, which is used by some of these pieces on this cardboard cutout. So you use these to make a wheel for your gameplay. You've got this thing, which was now known as the range ruler. They have a really easy to understand booklet. I think it's going to be pretty easy to figure out how to play this. It's not too complex. It's not like a wall of text. There's a lot of images, and there's a lot of little cutout areas that give you little tips on how to play quickly. Because let's face it, on a board game, no one wants to be sitting around for an hour and a half trying to figure out how to play, and then when you get to the gameplay, by that point you've already forgotten half of what you've been trying to set up. The play area. X-Wing is not played on a board. Instead, it is played on any flat surface with at least 3 by 3 of free space. 3 feet by 3 feet. Players may want to use a felt or cloth surface for added friction, or they can use official X-Wing playmats available on our website, Fantasy Flight Games. Now, it's not actually my website, it's Fantasy Flight Games' website. I'm not affiliated with Fantasy Flight Games or Lucasfilm. I'm just a fan. The tutorial setup for this game is very simple. There's only 5 steps. I'm going to read them off to you. One of them is assemble ships, like I mentioned before. You assemble them on this base, and then you also have some tokens on this that you punch in and put onto the ships. They're specific, though, so you have to look at page 2 to find out what those setups are. Then you choose a faction. One player is the First Order, and one player is the Resistance, the Resisties. Then you've got 2 TIE Fighters for the First Order and 1 for the Resistance. And you get that X-Wing. So you've got 2 on 1. The First Order player takes 2 TIE Fighters, 2 TIE Fighter ship cards, and 2 TIE Fighter maneuver dials. The other player is the Resistance. He takes the X-Wing, the matching ship card, the X-Wing maneuver dial, and it takes 3 X-Wing shield tokens to place onto the ship card. Step 3, establish play area, establish a surface. This may not be the best table for this. I have a long table. You might want to get a bit bigger, like a kitchen table or maybe a round table or something that you feel comfortable with that has at least 3x3 space. Step 4, you place forces. You put the ships in the play area as close as possible to the areas indicated on this diagram. And you prepare other components. You shuffle the card deck. You get the dice ready. You get your 3 stress tokens next to the play area. And you get it all set up just like it shows on the picture in the tutorial. Now this game has multiple phases in playing, so I'm just going to read off the rules real quick. Basically, this is very basically, guys. X-Wing is played over a number of game rounds. Each round consists of 4 phases resolved in the following order. Now keep in mind on the back of this box it said this game lasts about 30 to 45 minutes. A little long, but not too long. It's about just right, actually. So we got the planning phase, phase 1. Each player secretly, so you keep it to yourself, chooses a maneuver for each one of his ships by using his maneuver dial. Phase 2, the activation phase. Now, each ship moves according to its chosen maneuver. Phase 3, the combat phase. Each ship may perform 1 attack. Okay. And then 4 is end phase. You do any necessary cleanup to resolve your turn. So those 4 phases were actually in the same round. So we've got different rounds, or turns, basically. So in your turn, you have those 4 things that you have to do each turn. Players continue resolving all these rounds until each one of their ships is destroyed. Whoever's ships are destroyed first is obviously the one who's going to lose. So if you destroy all the opponent's ships, you win. So think of the board games like chess and checkers. You know, you've got 1 versus 1, opponent versus opponent, and you're basically going off a board, using your tactics on this board as you're coming close to each other, attacking each other back and forth, and trying to become the victor. Now, in this game, it's sort of like that, except it's a little different. It's a little more realistic. It's more like you're actually in Star Wars, because you have these ships, and you can see the ships, you can see the detail. You have all these parts that look like they're straight out of Star Wars movies. You've got the cards, which depict scenes on them, and they're specific for the actions of the ships. Now, you've got things like dice and stuff, but this is not necessarily a role-playing game. You may imagine the ships flying or shooting at each other, but as you're playing, but you don't need to actually role-play. You don't need to create your own character in your imagination or anything like that. And you don't need to act. So this is basically a game, a board game, but it's more elaborate than something like chess or checkers, but at the same time retains some of that same gameplay that it drew on from those past board games. Now, the Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game looks like it's going to be a lot of fun if you like that tabletop miniatures experience. It's a little different for me because I'm used to playing the miniatures game that had in the past, where you had on-foot soldiers going through dungeons, fighting each other like a PvP. But in this one, you've got the ships. So it's a little different. It's not the people so much, it's the space combat. So I think that's pretty interesting. It seems like you have more freedom. You're not going through so much of a maze, you know, or a dungeon. But yeah, this does look really fun. And that's about it for today's board game review on Happy Beard Games, your source for classic gaming goodness. Now, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more board game, let me know in the comments, because normally what I do is focus on video games. I have done board games in the past. Now, if you want to see more content from Happy Beard Games, be sure to subscribe. Check me out on Twitter as well, at Twitter at Happy Beard Games. And, as always, stay tuned for more classic gaming goodness. Until next time, Happy Beard Games will see you then. Happy Beard Games, out!